Well, good morning. Thank you to all of you for joining me on this journey. Faith and Consciousness is a podcast which it enables us to explore a series of concerns and questions and really go in depth as much as possible to what really are the key life changes, the transformative investments we have to make in ourselves so that we can live life with greater meaning, purpose, and abundantly. Today's program is on expectations. It's a theme that I tend to talk quite a bit about because I feel that it's so central to much of the frustration and much of the expressions that people uh, share with me of limitations and frustrations with their ability to enjoy and have um, realistic goals for themselves, and also sometimes to go out for things that they would have desired to maybe 10, 15, 5 years ago, but because they had expectations, they weren't willing to take that step um, and invest in themselves and take the risk because they had expectations. And I'll go more in depth into what those expectations are in that particular case, but also in other cases as well, which may resonate with you. So let's begin. An expectation is usually when we have a preconceived notion and a preconceived conclusion that we entertain about something that we're going to be experiencing. I'll give you an example. If I have a job interview awaiting me, I have an appointment, let's say, tomorrow, I will begin to have expectations about what that job interview is going to be like. I have expectations about the person that I'll be meeting based on the voice and the type of conversation that I had with them. And I have expectations about how I'm going to be in that interview. I have expectations about how maybe others who are going to be present at that interview are going to be behaving and sitting, and how they may be on their phones, or they're going to be doodling on their pad, or they're going to be asking me a question that's going to be completely absurd, and it's not going to really be a realistic question, maybe one that they found on the phone on their way to the interview. And just these same comments that I'm making to all of you now are based on expectations. And where do they come from? Well, most of expectations that we harbor come from prior experiences, things that have happened to us in the past, which we then use as a litmus test for how things are going to be tomorrow. And those expectations are images and warnings, red flags, personal advice, suggestions we make to ourselves, because at the end of the day, what we're actually trying to do is protect ourselves. It's a question of survival. We feel that by having expectations, we can guard and really we can control the situation. Expectations are about control. Expectations are about us feeling that we're prepared to meet things that we can kind of read already, giving us an edge or giving us a leg up or helping us to be safe. The problem with expectations, though, is that expectations, because they are events in the past, which we now use as tools to interpret and to, in essence, to use divination. We're in essence trying to be emotional psychics. We're trying to read what tomorrow is going to look like. We look at expectations as mental and emotional premonitions so that they can prepare us, and we can be prepared again so that we can survive, do our very best, guard our heart, know what's up someone's sleeve. But if you think about it, we go into life, therefore, on the defensive. But also by going into life with expectations, we go into life with myopia. And we go into life already looking for those things that are going to confirm those expectations. In fact, when we don't see, or when something happens opposite to our expectations, we tend to be surprised, and we tend to walk out thinking, wow, I thought it was going to go this way and it turned out to be that way. Well, that's just proving to you that you weren't going into that situation with an open mind, with an open heart, and fully in the moment. You were surprised because somehow the events transpired in such a way that they were pleasant enough to where you were caught off guard. So much for being on the ready, and so much for being prepared. Expectations tend to limit our ability to really enjoy the person that we're with. Expectations tend to limit our ability to take the fullness of that moment and really relish in it, to bask in that opportunity or in that event, because the expectations that we have keep us busy looking for signs that those expectations are correct. They keep us on the ready so we're not fully off guard. And because of the fact that we have expectations, it's really the expectations that drive us. So we're not open to seeing other possibilities beyond that of what we expected. One of the things that I've struggled with, and I think one of the things that I've been able to really work on, is being present. Mindfulness teaches us that being present is not being relaxed. Being present is not about forgetting events. Being present is not about rejecting thoughts. Being present is not about everything always being positive. But rather, being present is being open and available to what is going on at that moment non-judgmentally. And I think that that's really where expectations come from. Expectations are judgments about tomorrow based on what happened yesterday. And those judgments, as in any kind of judgment, is going to prepare our mind for certain things to happen. It's going to set us up emotionally for those things that we're judging to happen, for us to be emotionally ready for when they do. So it's much harder for us to be open to other sensations and other feelings when we're already priming ourselves for certain ones to happen. It's interesting how often people spend so much time on their phones taking photographs of the moments that they're experiencing. I'm sure we've all seen that. We've probably done it ourselves. So you're in the birthday party, and instead of you enjoying the birthday party, you're taking photographs of it. You're at a restaurant, and instead of really enjoying the moment, you're taking photographs of everybody who was around the table. Please don't misunderstand me. I think photographs are important. But I think what often happens is that people are so caught up in taking the photographs, and people are so caught up in making sure that there's memories, that the actual experience is forgotten. And all you have are those photographs. And if you've ever been someone who's looked at photographs and then you have a pretty clear memory of where you took that picture, the memory and the picture don't really ever look the same, do they? Expectations do that for us. Expectations are us going into the present with the photographs of the past and insisting that the present is going to look a lot like the past. And they're never really the same, are they? I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't have wisdom, of course, but wisdom is allowing us to act in the present with the reason and with the experience that we've acquired. But wisdom can happen, and wisdom should happen because it's rational, and it's because it's rooted in what we've learned, with the openness and with the opportunity that we give to the present to be all that it can be. Wisdom is about trusting that we have the wherewithal and we have the resilience and we have the resolve and the knowledge to be able to handle anything before us with discernment, with moderation, and with reason. But many expectations that we have aren't wise, and many of the expectations that we have are not rooted in reason. They're emotional. They're based on hurt. They're based on fear. And because of that last one, fear, I'd like to jump back to that comment that I had made about people sometimes not doing the things that they would have wanted to have done 10, 15, 5 years ago. Their expectations of failure. The expectations they held of others and their expectations for us. See, that's the other thing. Many of the expectations that we have of ourselves, they're really not our expectations. We've adopted those expectations that others have of us, and we've owned them. And as a result of that, when I hold myself accountable to an expectation that someone had of me, then I am limiting myself because of what that person may think of me, or because the expectations that person had of me, I am not meeting them. So I would encourage you this morning and throughout the day and for the days to come to regulate that. Be honest with yourself. Spend some time investing yourself today and ask yourself honestly. Write that down. Jot it down. What are some of the expectations that you have about circumstances, experiences, relationships, work, and of yourself, of others? Write them down. Reflect on them. And really get to the root of why those expectations are there. In the next program, I'll talk more in depth about where those expectations come from, but I'll leave you with this to think about. Every thought has an emotional root. I've shared this with all of you before. Every thought has an emotional root. I love gardening. I spend lots of time in my gardens, and when I go weeding about the garden, it's a long process. But I take my time, and I want to make sure that not only do I remove the weed that I can see that is now above the earth, above the dirt, but I take the time to pull the weed all the way from its root, so the weed does not come back. If I just pull the weed so where I don't see it, but the roots are still intact, well, many of these weeds, being the real difficult customers they are, they have the tendency to grow. Their roots get thicker, they get longer, they get healthier, and the weed comes back again, making it harder to unroot that weed in the future because now the roots are longer, they're more entrenched, they're healthier, they're bigger, and that often happens to our thoughts. If we just want to change our thoughts, if we just want to change our expectations, but we don't go to the emotional root of why those expectations and those thoughts are there, we're not going to really remove the thought. We're going to believe that we did, but at the real moment of looking at ourselves differently, or of thinking differently, of really facing circumstances with now this openness and this no expectation approach that I'm talking about, we won't be successful. And it's because those emotional roots are still going to be so present, and because we thought that we had done the work, we've given time for those emotions to actually root themselves even deeper into our mind and into our hearts and into our body. And remember that body muscle memory. The body remembers as well. So the body will respond to those emotional cues that are, again, so deeply rooted that no matter how much we tell ourselves, well, I don't think that way anymore. Well, guess what? The emotions of those thoughts are still there. This is going to be a process we'll talk more in length about. I recommend and I encourage you to stay in touch with me by subscribing to this podcast, and feel free to email me. www.pastordanielmedina.com is my website. My email is pastordanielmedina@gmail.com, and it would be a pleasure, a real honor, to be able to correspond with you and answer any questions that you have, maybe about something that you heard on the podcast, or something that you'd like for me to discuss, or something that you've been thinking about but you'd like for me to maybe share some ideas with you about that particular concern or inquiry you have. Again, my email is pastordanielmedina@gmail.com, and my website is www.pastordanielmedina.com. Thank you once again for tuning in and for listening, and I hope if this has been beneficial to you that you can share it with someone else. Please subscribe, and I encourage all of you to please, if you can, go to Amazon and check out some of the books that I have there. Daniel Medina, The Scandalous Menu is there, Urban Guru is there, and we're going to be having a new book coming up soon, Little Havana Haiku. And many of these books touch upon some of the things that I discuss in this podcast series. I thank you again. Peace, blessings to all of you, and I look forward to meeting up with you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.